So I just finished season 7 of Black Mirror, and then I started the series all over again, and a pattern basically bitch slapped me in the face. Which is how I get all my ideas. But the pattern? Women who aren't soft enough, sweet enough, likable enough, and who pay the price for it. In Black Mirror, being unlikable is basically a felony, punishable by, well, torture, with an artsy filter, which is basically just real life, isn't it? I mean, minus the filter and the well-written dialogue. One episode's even called Bête Noire, which sounds like a French fragrance, but which literally means a person or thing that one finds unlikable. Maria, the main character, I actually found her a little annoying. I mean, at first. Petty, gatekeepy, possibly fueled by expired hummus. Or almond milk. We'll get to it. By the end, I kind of got it. I mean, I got where she was coming from. So this is going to be a series on my channel called Misunderstood, devoted to women of anthology series. Because when you spend your life trying to be normal and polite and palatable, you end up being one office meltdown away from being someone's Bête Noire. Ask me how I know. So today we're going to rank some of the ladies of season 7 and some of the earlier seasons by how misunderstood they are, and maybe how willing I'd be to have a late night seance with them.
Ethel to Tilly.
But
welcome to Iconic Outsiders.
I'm Rain Ionova.
Common People is one of the most devastating episodes of not just this season, but the entire series. And at first glance, you probably wouldn't think of this in a conversation about likability, but there's more about this under the hood than you might think. So Amanda, who's a teacher played by Rashida Jones, she's given major brain surgery. In an attempt to save her life, they're forced to subscribe to a service that literally keeps Amanda's consciousness on a server. And when they're unable to afford the top tier of this service, she starts unconsciously performing ads in her daily life. And this becomes a big problem when she performs a Christian counseling ad to a struggling student.
Families that stay together bask in the glow of Christ's heart. For more information on faith-based family counseling, visit christsheart.com.
I mean, at least it wasn't Christian Mingle. That would have been really awkward to recommend to a kid. Although what's next? Jesus, VPN, protect your soul online, try loving Jesus, that's logged from Lithuania. But it's very realistic because you can see some greedy company doing this. So do you think this is Black Mirror's secret jab at Netflix for raising their rates a lot?
Pray for another fix. Where's my mind at? It streams from Netflix. Make those pockets fat.
But can you imagine if Netflix was responsible for your consciousness? God. And I'll admit, I laughed.
Kids love honey. That's why parents love Honey Nugs. Whole grain chunks covered in golden Tupelo honey. The sweetest way to start your day. Honey Nugs from Bete.
It is absurd. It's so Black Mirror. But it's also one of the best examples I've ever seen of how closely linked comedy and tragedy really are. Because Amanda doesn't even realize she's doing it. And when the school finds out, they tell her, you can't advertise at work. If it happens again, we have to let you go. And the only way to stop it is to upgrade, which they can't afford. So they fire her.
No, I won't cry another tear to go up another tier. They've got my head in the cloud. I move down in tears. Raindrops fall like tears. 'Cause I've got my head in the cloud. Got my head in the cloud. You cut up my brain. What Mike does is insane. I'm cutting out now. Got my head in the cloud. Got my head in the cloud. I'll be cutting out now.
one of the most devastating in the entire series. The kicker is that she's not being punished for doing anything wrong. She's being punished because the tech in her brain is making her say things that make people uncomfortable. And how different is that really from how we treat people with mental health issues? There are many mental health problems that people just can't help, and I really think this is a great metaphor for that. When people stop being likable. As a contrast to Amanda's behavior, Mike has a coworker who's objectively awful, incredibly unlikable, makes a comment about a literal torture site, and no one bats an eye. And that's how Mike is able to afford a kind of day pass upgrade, just enough for Amanda to get a taste of that higher tier and what it's like to be her best self. Emotionally regulated, socially acceptable, no accidental Christian ads. And they buy it from a Rivermind rep named Gaynor, brilliantly played by Tracee Ellis Ross, who gives the most soul-shattering version of that "I'm just doing my job" customer service rep we've all heard while slowly dying inside on hold. We already know that Gaynor is a client herself, and I'm guessing the only reason she can afford the premium tier is because she works for Rivermind. Later, Amanda and Mike, now unable to afford the service at all after Mike loses his job, finally confronts her absolutely at their breaking point. And Gaynor, she's visibly upset, but she uses the app to dial down her emotions back down in real time.
Or dial up the nonchalance. Just dial up that nonchalance. 'Cause I've got my head in the cloud. You cut up my brain. Husband works so insane. I'm cutting out now. Got my head in the cloud. Got my head in the cloud. And I'm cutting out now. Ooh,
It's pretty clear the upgrade isn't even an improvement, just a pricier version of being palatable. But either way, Mike and Amanda can't even afford that. Like most great Black Mirror episodes, Common People works on a few levels. It's a powerful metaphor for mental health, sure. But there's also been some discourse on how disturbingly relevant it is to people who rely on life-saving meds, like insulin or HIV treatment. In both cases, the message is the same. If you can't afford to be functional, the system doesn't care if you survive. We're going to talk about this further when we discuss Nosedive. Rewatching that took a very personal turn for me. Since this is about being misunderstood, I'm giving Amanda a misunderstood rating of 11 out of 10. And I definitely would hold a midnight seance with her. But fired for streaming ads in this economy? No, but seriously, this is awful. So now we're going to talk about Bête Noire, or as I like to call it, The Devil Wears Miso. This episode is about a very tightly wound food developer named Maria, who invents a miso-filled chocolate bar. I actually think it sounds genius, but her coworkers treat it like a hate crime until Verity shows up. Verity Green shows up to a focus group uninvited, takes one bite, and says, "Well, I like it." And suddenly everyone agrees. Queen bee energy activated. Turns out Verity is a former classmate, and it's instantly obvious that Maria does not like her, although she does everything in her power to deny it.
Have you got beef with her?
No.
Sincerity is important to me, so this is one of the many reasons why I was feeling like, oh, what is wrong with this girl? Why is she blocking her so hard? The only information she gives is that Verity was one of those girls who got bullied for being weird, awkward, and just not likable. In school, she was given the nickname Milkmaid in regards to a teacher she was very close with, and I think you can imagine why.
I'm gonna go out on the town and find 10 gallons of semen.
But now Verity is gorgeous, mysterious, and somehow gets hired by Maria's company, Bete. But she gets hired even though there was no job. It's like, huh? And from there, reality starts glitching. Maria's work gets sabotaged, her memory seems to be sketchy, and somehow Verity is always there for it. She gaslights Maria so hard, almond milk turns against her. She literally gets fired for drinking someone's almond milk, even though she has a nut allergy. Except now, no one remembers nut allergies exist, not even Google. Although I should say it like one word, right? Nut allergies. Nut allergies. You try saying it. It's not easy to say.
Nut allergy. You keep saying it like it's supposed to mean something.
So Maria, who's already spiraling from getting fired,
It's that pendant thing.
Maria.
Oh my god.
Look.
She's changing things.
finds Verity's quantum supercomputer layer because, of course, she has one. This is Black Mirror, after all. But she discovers during a confrontation that Verity has a pendant that lets her shift realities. So Verity is playing God because she got called a slut in 2004. Honestly, relatable origin story. We find out that Verity was responsible for the death of a girl who was a bully back in school, but not before she tells Verity that Maria was responsible for the milkmaid rumor. But instead of denying it, Maria admits it, and this is where I kind of started gaining some respect for her. She says she might have been jealous, sure, but more than anything, she did it just so she wouldn't be bullied herself, which, oof. I mean, that hits. I kind of get that.
Now. Turn around.
The final showdown ends with Maria shooting Verity in the face, stealing the pendant, and shifting reality until she declares herself Empress of the universe, because why not? Bête Noire is one of the most absurd episodes of the season. That's why I'm surprised at how nuanced it actually is. I think there's been this newer layer of pressure for women to support other women, and I think this episode's very nuanced on that topic. I'll admit I judged Maria a little too quickly, and I felt bad for that because I have been bullied. But I've also had people jump to conclusions about me without knowing the full story. What this episode captured so well is how deeply we internalize these unwritten rules about how girls are supposed to act. It's not about being likable to society, it's about being likable to each other. There's this unspoken expectation that women must support each other even when there's a long tangled history underneath.
What's important is you're supporting each other, and women supporting women, that's where it's at. Why don't you ask that little cunt what really happened?
Both Verity and Maria were just trying to survive. Verity was a target. Maria didn't want to be the target. So she said something, and that something stuck. Not out of cruelty, but, out of fear. And decades later, both of them are still living inside that moment. What's heartbreaking is that Verity, now armed with God-tiered coding powers and total control over reality, still can't shake the feeling that people only like her because she made them. She's constructed an entire reality where she's adored, and it still hurts because deep down, neither of them were ever really liked for who they are. But I'm going to give them a misunderstood score of 2.5 out of 5 for both of them. Maria, because guilt still is not a good reason to block someone from getting hired. Especially this was before she knew Verity was a boss-level gaslighter with multiverse access. Verity, did she ruin someone's life? Absolutely. Did she gaslight so hard that she broke the fourth wall of time and space? Also, yes. And I wouldn't hold a late-night seance with either of them, because I could really see either of them summoning a demon just to win an argument. Next, we're going to talk about Nosedive, written by Rashida Jones, who also starred in Common People. I hadn't seen the episode in so long, and watching it now, I had a completely different read. It takes place in this pastel-colored nightmare world where every interaction is rated out of 5 stars, and your score determines your entire quality of life. Housing, job opportunities, social access, all of it hinges on how likable you appear to be, not how kind you are, not how honest, just how pleasing you seem. Lacey Pound, brilliantly played by Bryce Dallas Howard, is a 4.2-star citizen who's working very hard to hit a 4.5 so she can qualify for a luxury apartment. And she's doing it in a way that's pretty familiar to today, with filtered smiles, green juice, and a strategic posting of sentimental content. In this case, a photo of Mr. Rags, a childhood toy she made with her now influencer bestie, Naomi. Naomi sees it, rates her 5 stars, and invites her to give a speech at her wedding, full of very highly rated guests. This is Lacey's big break, her likability debut, and she's assured of raising her star rating. But as she heads to the wedding, that ends up being easier said than done. All these delays, inconveniences, and minor misunderstandings, completely human moments, lead to a flood of low ratings. Suddenly, she can't board a plane, she can't rent a good car, gets penalized, doubled down, and dragged through a system that demands perfection and punishes humanity. Naomi, who's now aware of all of her low ratings, decides she doesn't want her at her wedding, so she goes rogue and comes anyway, and at the wedding gives a gloriously unhinged speech, threatens to decapitate Mr. Rags, and tanks her rating completely. The final scene shows her in a jail with another low-rated prisoner, finally able to speak her mind, no filter, no consequences, no 5-star rating required.
This time when I watched Nosedive, it really hit me completely differently. And I know we're not supposed to armchair diagnose people, but since Lacey's not a real person, I'm gonna guess that Lacey is on the autism spectrum. And if not, I think it's one of the best allegories I've ever seen of what it's like to be a high-masking autistic woman. I was diagnosed with autism this year in addition to ADHD, and it just absolutely changed everything. I've never curated my life like Lacey does, but I've definitely behaved a certain way so people wouldn't think I was weird. I've always tried to make people happy, so I just disguised my autistic traits, and I didn't realize I was doing it. It seems like where she practices her smile in the mirror, oh my god, I've done that. I used to script all my conversations like in social situations, the way she hides how passionately she feels, how tightly wound she is underneath it all. It all feels so familiar. Oh, and that ending, that meltdown, that's kind of like what autistic burnout really feels like, at least for me. I went through 3 years of it. Eventually you just give out and you really end up losing people, friends, family, the people you think are gonna understand, because all they see is that you're not the same person that you used to be. Was my performance built for them? That's the bitterest pill of all, especially when I used to be the person that everyone leaned on, kind of like Lacey is with her brother. And just this expectation that women need to be likable, this is why so many women go undiagnosed. It's just so dangerous. How accurate do you guys think Nosedive ended up being? Because it is a little bit of an older episode. I think
Even though this was supposed to be a future world, there's something almost quaint about the content of this world, which is weird to say about social media, but like it's not trying to sell a supplement or start a podcast. It's giving ye old Instagram, back when people just posted stuff. For validation, sure, but it's not a multi-part series on why their ex-boyfriend is a narcissistic gaslighting wormhole of a man, even if it is true. I wondered if other people saw what I was seeing, and yeah, there are a few videos and Reddit threads about it, so I'm not the only one. Misunderstood score 5 out of 5, because holy guacamole, I relate to this one now. But Bête Noire and Nosedive aren't the only episodes where a woman gets punished for being misunderstood. The next one, it's literally called Joan Is Awful. So you know, subtle. So Joan is your average boss babe. Whose biggest crime is being a little emotionally unavailable and maybe a little indecisive. But my moon is in Pisces, so I relate. One night, she turns on a streaming service and sees a show about her own life starring Salma Hayek, which, of course, not bad, but also weird.
I'm sure this hasn't been an easy decision for them.
Joan, please don't do this. Please, not now. I can't. I thought we were friends. Joan.
All of a sudden, she gets turned into a national villain. Due to some of the indiscretions from the show, her fiancé leaves her. She gets fired. She becomes internet hated based on a version of her that isn't even very real, but feels real enough for people to treat her like garbage. And look, is Joan perfect? No. But does she deserve a lifetime of public humiliation and a legally binding deepfake of Salma Hayek pooping in a church on her behalf? Also no. What Joan Is Awful taps into beneath the poop jokes and the quantum computer chaos is something we're actively living through now. The public trial of women's behavior has become entertainment. I think it started with reality TV. Shows like Real Housewives turned female conflict into sport. But it didn't stop there. It followed us onto social media. I used to watch a show called Do We Know Them that covered internet backlash and TikTok drama, and at first I genuinely thought it was interesting. Human behavior is interesting. But at some point, I had to stop because too often it was just women being judged over and over. Not for being evil, not even for being harmful, just for being unlikable, for having an attitude, for being off, for crying weird, for existing wrong. Look how many people talked about Amber Heard or Blake Lively or just random girls on TikTok who go viral for looking annoying while ordering a smoothie. It's judge, jury, and executioner, but make it algorithmic. And that's what Joan Is Awful is really about. You don't have to do anything extraordinary to become the villain. You just have to stop being agreeable. Misunderstood score 4 out of 5. She did poop in a church, but in her defense, it was metaphorical and probably a branding choice. Honestly, I've seen worse on Goop. Oh yeah, I forgot about my late night seance. Lacey and Joan are both invited. Now, honestly, I could keep going. There are a lot of episodes in this vein. Ashley O, for example. On the surface, it's one of the lighter episodes, but you rewatch it after the Free Britney movement and knowing what happened to her, it reads way darker in retrospect. So yeah, comment if you'd like to see a part 2. But that's why I want to do one more episode, because of how different these later episodes are, especially when you consider how dark the series began. If you remember, the very first episode involved the Prime Minister and a pig. You know what I'm talking about. And if you don't Google it in public. But That's why I want to talk about White Bear from season 2, an episode that took everything Joan Is Awful hinted at and turned it into a full-blown psychological horror. So this one started with a woman who wakes up with no memory in a house full of creepy TVs playing a weird symbol. She goes outside and begs for help, and everyone just silently stares at her, filming on their phones. No one helps. They just record, like Walmart customers in the wild. And then a masked man shows up with a shotgun and starts chasing her through the suburbs, like it's the Purge Instagram edition. She meets another woman, Jem, who tells her society collapsed right when that weird symbol appeared on the screens. Most people turned into passive voyeurs. The rest turned into hunters. Now they're in the middle of this Hunger Games hellscape, trying to escape a transmitter at a place called White Bear. Except, plot twist, when they get there, the gun she fires blasts confetti. The walls open, and it turns out none of this is real. It's all a setup. Jem is an actress. The hunter guy is the host of this sick little show. And the woman we've all been following, her name is Victoria Scalane. She and her fiancé murdered a little girl. He killed himself in custody, and Victoria? She's been sentenced to live this nightmare every day as part of a punishment. Waking up with no memory, being tortured, hunted, humiliated, all while tourists watch, film, and rate her pain like it's a theme park game. Welcome to White Bear Justice Park, sponsored by Vengeance and Existential Dread. The final shot? Staff resetting the stage for the next day. Visitors filing in with popcorn and cameras. And Victoria, wiped clean again, about to suffer all over. It's hard to give Victoria a misunderstood score because honestly, I don't think we have enough information. The way they word her backstory makes me wonder, was she a monster or a manipulated accomplice? Her reactions are like a scared person, so I don't know. And that's what makes this episode so brilliant, but it doesn't feel right for me to score it. Morally Blurry doesn't even begin to cover it. My grandma used to say, if you're gonna make an assumption, make it a positive one, because you really don't know what someone's going through. And I try to live by that, especially when it comes to women, because this world, it loves to assume the worst about us. It jumps straight to judgment, straight to punishment. And honestly, I do too sometimes. I jump to conclusions about Maria in Bête Noire. I didn't stop to ask why she was acting the way she was. But that episode taught me something.
So yeah, maybe the real dystopia is this 5-star rating system we built inside of ourselves. Those are just a few of the women in Black Mirror that have been put under the microscope. Some sympathetic, some chaotic, some possibly criminal. But until next time, stay complicated, stay unlikable, stay misunderstood. Bye!
Break for